What are people slowly starting to forget? The recession of '08. I see so many people making the same mistakes once again. Like leveraging everything to buy an overpriced house they can't afford. Where I live, every house is an overpriced house no one can afford. Not even apartments are affordable. People are expected to take huge loans that put them in debt for the rest of their lives, just to have their own place. The people, and especially young adults and students, are screaming for more rental apartments, yet only condominiums are being built. The only friends I have around my age, around 30, who actually own the place they live in are the ones lucky enough to have parents well enough off to buy their apartment for them. It's up. Edit. Since the majority of replies are about location, I live in Sweden. A world before the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. The United States has been in that war since 2001. That means starting around next year there will be people fighting in a war that began before they were born. This generation has never known a world before 9/11. Was just thinking this. I'm 21 and in a public policy class we watched Iraq for sale. So many things I didn't know because I was so young. A lot of people don't know about Abu Ghraib anymore. That people can take their time to respond and need not be available through phone or social media all the time. This isn't just a social group thing either. This applies to work now too. Because of phone/email/laptops etc, my manager or a customer can just call me, email me, and expect a reply out of hours. Then if I stand up for myself and say I aren't at work, it's actually punishable. Terrible 9 to 5. Not really. Phone numbers, addresses, etc. With the ability to save numbers to your phone and Google just about every address out there, many people don't seem to commit them to memory anymore. On the opposite side of that, I still remember my home phone number from when I was a kid. That was around 15 years ago now. Nature. 100 years ago you could catch a cod that was 6 feet long off the coast of Newfoundland. Today you're lucky if you get one that is a foot. The strange thing is that people are equally excited. Now we just think that cod are maximum 2 feet in length. Ecological amnesia is the term I believe. It's also called shifting baselines. My grandpa remembers a world with way more birds in it, but once he's gone his baseline goes with him. Then it will be me remembering the number of birds from my childhood, which was already low compared to his childhood. Hence a shifted baseline. Everything's ducked and we don't even realize how far ducked it is. That crime rate is lowest as ever been. News channels feed the fear that the world is dangerous, to the point we don't talk to our neighbors anymore. We don't know who our neighbors are anymore. That is ducked up. Yay, my neighbor's name is John. That's literally all I know about him. The world wars, the Cold War, and just how fragile and valuable this society we've built up over the last 100 years is. We live in a society, but really, there are so many people in Western countries that get radicalized and think war is no big deal. They have no idea what luxury it is, in the grand scheme of things, to be able to live without the constant threat of death or violence. The importance of your privacy. There's a documentary in Curiosity Stream where Edward Snowden says something profound. It's not about having something to hide. It's about having something to protect. That thing is liberty. Saying you don't care about privacy because you have nothing to hide is no different from saying you don't care about freedom of speech because you've got nothing to say. The reason all those international rules-based organizations were created after WW2. In my education, it was the part of history that got the least attention, either because it's not as interesting or because it gets too close to modern day politics and is more controversial. I'm not really sure why, but it's one of many flaws in the education system, I think. What America was like before 9/11. We've become a lot more paranoid and willingly gave up a lot of our freedoms to buy the illusion of security, and we don't really think of the ramifications of everything the Patriot Act has in it. Current first-time voters literally don't remember. The Equifax breach. I try and bring this up all the time. Legitimate personal data was stolen, SS&CC numbers, and everyone just shrugs or mentions the FB breaches as if they are comparable. People shrug because there's nothing you can do about it. It happened to almost everybody you know. that the person of the president is not supposed to be the primary focus of the news every single day. The 24-hour news cycle is a relatively recent invention. It's fascinating to look back at American history and see periods where the presidents dominated Washington and the Times, when Congress dominated the discussion. I think what is worse than the 24/7 news cycle is the 24/7 social media. Memes and misleading infographics have become the new face of yellow journalism. What it is like to have loved ones, especially children, catch diseases that today can be prevented through vaccinations. To read the accounts of children developing the symptoms of polio and having them forcibly removed from homes by civil authorities, neighbors watching, while screaming mothers and fathers tried to stop it/deny that their children were ill. I think if we were exposed to this today, some wouldn't be so resistant to vaccinations. We are becoming victims of our own exceptionalism. How getting a degree was only needed for a job. You could get anything you wanted and still go into a technical position. Now, your degree is essentially obsolete without the right degree or experience or anything meaningful that makes your background better than the people you're competing against. Study just published recently, 66% of entry-level jobs require 3 years experience. Edit. 61%, and it appears to be a marketing data point for staffing agencies. That diseases like measles, mumps, rubella etc. seldom appear today because of vaccines. Vaccinate your kids. 2 of my grandparents lost siblings to diseases that you can either vaccinate for today or have treated with antibiotics. My great uncle, still alive, was paralyzed by polio for 2 years when he was a kid. His grandniece is anti-vax and anti-medicine and treats her kids with essential oils and bullshit. It's horrifying that this is still in living memory, yet we've apparently already forgotten. If you want a good look at the horrors these diseases bring, look through your genealogy. You'll almost certainly find examples of children who died from the measles, or families wiped out by scarlet fever. Pandemic diseases like the Spanish flu that wipe out large populations. It's particularly worrying with Western medicine losing more and more funding, drug-resistant bacteria, and idiots like anti-vaxxers increasing the odds for viruses. Someone's just bumping down the difficulty level. We'll reach a point where 50% of people won't wash their hands, and doctors will only work 2 days a week. /s. The whole net neutrality thing was huge news for a while, and now it seems like everyone forgot, similar to what happened with Zopa and Pippa in 2011. If I were a major internet provider that wanted to take advantage of the new situation, I would wait a few years for things to normalize and then slowly take advantage. It's harder to build resistance against the slow creeping end of net neutrality than against jarring changes. Remember that when you wanted to call someone at home, you had to go through the gatekeeper, usually another relative. You had to ask for the person to see if they are even there. TLDR, house phones. Spending hours standing in one spot cause you did not have wireless phones. Just how many insects should be around? In the last few decades or so, the biomass of insects has dropped drastically, and it's real bad, like ecosystem collapse level bad. Tell that to the 18 flies that get into my house every time I open the door. Russia's illegal annexing of Crimea, the war still going on in Ukraine, how the current Iranian regime came to power, the Vegas shooting, the hurricane in Puerto Rico where power was just finally restored, and so much more. Apparently, there's still no motive for Vegas. I always think about songs that will/have lost their meaning to a generation that doesn't understand, and songs that aren't too old like Paul Simon's Kodachrome and BNL's Hook and Line about keeping a phone off the hook to avoid communication. Life progresses, change is not all bad, but we do lose some things along the way. That it was possible in America for one person working one job to be in the middle class, to buy a home, and maintain a family on one income. Basic navigation. GPS plus smartphone navigation has made it such that we are losing the skills of map reading and geographical orientation. Just judging by the current political climate, exactly how Hitler came into power, and how quickly German citizens lost their rights, people tend to think of WW2 as so long ago, and that the Holocaust could never occur again. But the truth is most of those people were just like you and me, and in just a few years the fragile democracy we currently have can easily be taken away from us.